All right, Power Building 101. Let's talk a little bit about this concept. This is a topic that has become trending off and on, people for and against it. We've seen Mike O'Hearn using the term power bodybuilding. Here's the thing that's funny. I've kind of joked in the past and said, look, this power building is really not that different from just old school bodybuilding, this whole concept. And here's what I mean. When you look at the basic ideas of what we're calling power building, it's just basically doing some really heavy work for a small amount of work for things like your big three. In my case, I am literally doing the classic lifts. You'll see guys, like O'Hearn out there might do it as a box squat. He might do it as an incline or whatever. But he still also does the big three with it. Okay. And it's usually very, very, very low volumes of work, maybe singles, maybe just one heavy single, maybe a couple sets of 1 to 3 reps. And then everything else is a bodybuilding split. That is literally the concept behind it. Okay. Now, when you go back and look though, how did bodybuilders oftentimes train? 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. Look at their old training clips. Did you guys not see Arnold squat doing 500-pound squat, 600-pound deadlift, benching 405, right? Franco Columbu doing that stuff. Okay? Yep. Did we see Ronnie Coleman doing that? So when we discuss this whole concept of power building, it's pretty old school. It's pretty old school. Essentially, this is how many powerlifters have trained, but also bodybuilding champions. Although not so much powerlifters, I've kind of said a lot of the basic ideas before just seems kind of like West Side, but not really because they didn't care about physique. When we're talking about power building, we're talking about training mostly for physique while doing a little bit of powerlifting. Just enough to get strong. Just enough to have a strength base, just enough to glean the benefits of true, serious strength training, and then coming in and just focusing on mostly just hypertrophy in your physique. And this is how I train more and more, and people have noticed, like, well, you're looking more and more like a bodybuilder. I'm not quite there, but getting there slowly but surely, because now it's kind of like, well, I really do need to sculpt things. I need to work on weak points. I need to bring up my side delts, my biceps, the long head of my tricep, maybe my calves more, right? We're looking at these things. We're looking at proportion and symmetry. But essentially that is what this is. This is almost just old school bodybuilding. Not necessarily the oldest school. Like when I used to talk about old school bodybuilding, when I first started discussing stuff on the tubes, it was going all the way back to like silver era. But when we go to golden era, or even a lot of the 80s stuff, 90s stuff, how a lot of guys train. They focus on a little bit of powerlifting. They focused on a little bit of powerlifting, and then they came in and trained like a bodybuilder. And I mean, we saw it over and over and over. And again, we want to go slightly more modern, but I joke and say modern, but it's not, is it? I say that, but Ronnie Coleman isn't modern. This is my age showing. I think of him that way because to me, that was modern bodybuilding. Because to me, old school was, Reg Park, Arnold, all that, right? That was more old school. Steve Reeves. But to this generation, guys like Ronnie Coleman are old school. But how many people still say that guy was the GOAT? And it's not like he was the only guy who was training that way back then. He just got really highlighted because he won the Mr. Olympia so dang many times. All right, but here's the thing. This applies to everybody. The funny thing is I have known coaches who train grandmas and housewives like this. Okay? Right? I even did a podcast with one a few years back who he did that. He literally has 50-year-old women at his gym who do this. Now, he had 4 lifts, right? He did the squat, the bench, the deadlift, and then he had trap bar deadlift as a 4th lift in there. He had all his clients max on that stuff. They maxed out. They hit heavy singles. They did that, and then they came in and then they trained just general hypertrophy and fitness. Okay, what I'm suggesting is this is a great all-around concept because it lets us still get strong, and no one can stand there and go, oh, weak physique, guys. Y'all do nothing but work on your physique and your biceps. No, you're still going to be strong. If you train this way, you're going to actualize the strength off of it. But the amount of strength training that you would do in like true power building, it is physique focused to the point where when people say, well, it's not, it could limit you in bodybuilding. Really, did it limit all the Mr. Olympias who did it? Like, I mean, again, multiple Mr. Olympias kind of trained this way. Literally walking into the shows, 800-pound deadlift 2 weeks before the Olympia, and then win it. I don't think it did limit them. But when we look at this whole concept, doesn't it work for everybody? Because again, the functional strength side of taking all that muscle and converting it into actual strength, using it so that you're not useless. Right? The whole idea that people have that physique people are, she isn't necessarily true. With very, very little work, they become super strong. Okay, and then you come in and just sculpt your physique. Focus on building muscle, build it all over your whole body, then build it in the right places. Put the extra work in the areas that you care about, things like your biceps, if it's your, your rear delt, whatever you need, A lot of people have that favorite muscle, and it varies. Remember I used to have client Emma, she used to really care a lot about her side delt. So we always isolated them, even though she ran, more conjugate type training. Hey, you'll get other people that really care about those biceps. They come in and just hammer those biceps like 15 sets a week, but we still would train this way. And people could literally do this right there as a beginner. They could do this straight from the get-go. I could absolutely put novices on squat, bench, deadlift, rows, and then throw some curls in, and then everybody's happy. The same idea could apply right there from day one, even though it's not true power building. But it could drift into it real fast. But I would suggest that anyone who's finished 6 months of training, if they can train with good form, they could switch to this type of programming. They could do it on a 3-day split, 4-day split, 5-day split. So they could be a push-pull legs. Like I like that too. I do coach some people that way, right? Where we do a push-pull legs, heavy single or heavy set on a squat, bench, and deadlift, and then everything else is just their physique. 3 days a week. You know what? And it works. It's efficient. It's fast. A lot of my dad bod transformations train this way. And then they still have some decent lifts, right? They still have a respectable strength base, but really we spend 95% of their time just working on looking good naked, right? Just looking sexy, just being fit. But we still have some functionality, and that's the idea. And it really is just more of an old school type of bodybuilding. That's all that it is. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.